Welcome back, folks. I'm Yvonne Davis, author, astrologer, and life transformation coach. And I've got a really important video for you today, and I'm going to be working on videos all weekend because the next 5 days, really all the way through the week, but there are 4 days that are really going to be important to pay attention to. So I'm going to be talking about them in my video today, and this is called Can Trump Keep Us Safe? So the first thing I want to do is say that a lot of people have asked me to do an astrology workshop. So I've finally gotten that put together, and you can find the link in the description box below. If you just want to take the workshop, it's 6 weeks. Or if you would like to get a reading with me, you can do a combo that gives you a discount on the reading. So if you're interested, just check that out. And the nice thing about that is that then for those 6 weeks while we're in the course together, you can ask any questions you want, and you can, look at the charts and see for yourself if you can find a resolution to the situation. I'll give you my best guess, but it would be nice, I think, for a lot of you to know how to look at the charts and try to come to those conclusions yourself. So let me go ahead and pull up the first chart that I want to show you. All right, so this is the U.S. Sibley chart, and so this is the Declaration of Independence chart, and it's on the inside. And then this is September 11th, 2001. Now, the thing about astrology is that you have to look at a lot of charts over time because there are certain degrees that get hit over and over and over again, and they're important degrees. And then the other thing is the planets that are hitting those degrees and the way they're hitting them. So this is important because on 9/11, 2001, we had a Pluto-Saturn opposition in the signs of Sagittarius and Gemini right over the ascendant of the United States chart, okay? Also note that the South Node was at 3 degrees of Capricorn, and the North Node was at 3 degrees of Cancer, okay? Those are, I mean, we're seeing repetitions right now. Okay, so let's look at Mars was activating the South Node at that time in Capricorn, and Neptune was activating the natal South Node of the US chart. And let's see what else we've got here that we need to look at. The sun is right over the natal Neptune at the time of 9/11. And I think those are the most important positions and planets that we need to look at. So now what I want to do is I want to look at what's happening this weekend. And so I will bring up that chart. Okay, so at the moment that I'm making this video, it's Friday, March 20th, 2020, and we've just had the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. And then on the 23rd, actually the 22nd and the 23rd, because it changes signs around midnight from the 22nd to the 23rd, which is Sunday and Monday. This weekend is going to be really intense. And if you have to go out, if you have to do any shopping, get it done today and then get yourself out of there, because you do not want to be out in a public place this weekend. And I'm not just talking about the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I'm talking about Friday evening too. Like whatever is coming, you just don't want to be out in public this weekend. And so I'm going to try my best to explain what I'm talking about. Let's first look at the chart for this this Mars-Pluto conjunction, which is exact at this particular time, but we're leading up to it. As I've always said, it's a bell curve. The energy peaks when it's exact, but it's already in process. Okay, it's already happening right now, and Jupiter is magnifying the Pluto-Mars conjunction. So if you have to go out, if you have to get some groceries, do it now and get yourself home and stay safe this weekend. Don't go out tonight. Don't go out this weekend. And I'm serious about this. Now, maybe in your community, people are safe. I know in my community, I just went to the grocery store this morning because of the whole TP issue, and I decided I was going to go first thing in the morning, because I know I didn't want to go this weekend. I am not going anywhere near the grocery store or anywhere in public this weekend, but definitely not to the grocery store. And so I went this morning, and I was very pleased because I went early, and I got there, about 10, at the most about 10 minutes before 7 a.m. because I thought I need to do this early and get this out of the way. And so that's what I did. And there was already a crowd of at least 20 people standing around the door, waiting for the doors to open at 7. And they were letting the anyone 65 and older to just come straight in. No waiting. They just walked straight in. And anyone who was under 65 was waiting outside. And then at 7 a.m., they announced that moving forward, the hours for seniors would be 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then from 8 a.m. on, it was just general shopping for all ages. And so, and they also said that there would be limits. They're putting limits on toilet paper, meat, eggs, and milk. I think those were the only items they had put limits on, and they said 1 per customer. And so I went in when, as soon as they opened the doors, and I went in and I bought the things that I needed. I did buy extra rice. Not, I actually eat rice, and so I actually needed rice. And I decided to buy extra because of the fact that the supplies keep getting diminished as soon as they're on the shelves. So I thought I'll just go ahead and take care of my supply of rice. And then I went and bought my other normal items. I didn't need any milk or meat because I try to eat low on the food chain anyway. And so now I'm feeling even more motivated to eat really low on the food chain. And I'm happy with that. Yeah, I think that's a very responsible way to respond to the situation. And I'm not saying what anyone else should do. I'm just saying that's my choice. And I'm happy with that choice. And I feel motivated. And but I did get a dozen eggs because I'm not vegan. And so, but again, I am making an effort to eat lower on the food chain. And so as I was just moving through the aisles, I didn't go straight to the paper aisle, but when I got to that aisle, all that was left was just what I consider not very high quality TP, because it's like mostly air in my opinion. But anyway, I just want to say this, I mean, this is not the kind of thing that I would obviously normally talk about, but these are strange times. So I'm going to say something that under other circumstances might seem a little bit strange. And that is that I have traveled in less developed countries. I was just in Costa Rica and Nicaragua in November and December. And before all this, came into our awareness. And I've also spent a lot of time backcountry hiking and camping. And this is more for women, but if there are men out there who are in need, I can tell you that the solution in 2 words: bandana and water. I'll let you figure the rest out, okay? But for women, it's a very effective way of meeting our needs without using toilet paper. So, and women have different needs than men do in that situation. So, again, I feel kind of strange talking about this, but these are strange times. So, I'm just trying to, take a path that is as responsible as possible. And this is very important because Saturn is one of the planets that's playing a very important role. So I showed you on 9/11/2001 that there was a Pluto-Saturn opposition right over the ascendant of the United States. Now we're looking at Mars conjunct Pluto, and this is already in effect, okay? You don't have to wait until midnight from Sunday to Monday for this to be in effect. It's in effect right now. And that's why I'm saying, if you have to go out, if you have to go to the grocery store, do it now. Then get yourself home and stay safe this weekend, because this is scary energy. It really is. And it's going to be in effect this weekend. And there are some people out there who are, under normal circumstances, unstable, okay? You take some person who is unstable, you add in the cosmic rays coming down with Pluto conjunct Mars, the god of death and the god of war, and you magnify that with Jupiter, you've got some pretty unstable energy, not to mention the role that Uranus is playing as well. And then you put those unstable people with unstable energy in an unstable situation, and you've got a recipe for some really unstable situations, okay? And you don't want to be out there, because even under the best of circumstances, like Black Friday, there have been cases where people have been trampled to death. So, yeah, I mean, this is serious, serious stuff this weekend. Please don't mess with this. Keep yourself safe. And it's not just the potential for violence, it's also the potential for contraction of the virus. And I want to talk about that seriously because, prior to just recently, astrologers were saying something is coming, something is coming, something is coming. And we didn't know exactly how it was going to manifest. We made some guesses, but especially when Uranus is in the mix, we cannot always predict what it's going to look like. We can just make our best guesses, but we knew something was coming, and we've been saying it for a long time. And we've been saying, watch out for the Jupiter, watch out for the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. We've seen Pluto opposite Saturn and what that brought to the United States. I just showed you that chart. In January, we had a Pluto-Saturn conjunction at the time of a full moon eclipse. We just had an event where Mars conjoined that 20-degree point of the eclipse. So these points are getting activated now. Pluto is now at 24 degrees conjunct Mars. Mars activates, okay? Mars is going to activate something this weekend. And that's why you don't want to get into the mix. You need to stay home and keep yourself safe. The other problem with this chart, for one thing, this is set for Washington, D.C., and the ascendant is right over the natal ascendant of the U.S. chart. That's important. It's not random, okay? And then we've got the Pluto-Saturn conjunction at 24 degrees with Jupiter magnifying it. And we've got Neptune conjunct the moon opposite the natal Neptune up here. The fourth house is the house of home, which in the U.S. means our homeland, okay? This is happening on our homeland. And The most important thing to understand about the planets is that there are 5 planets that are playing extremely important roles in terms of the long-term transformation. The other planets are triggering. So Mars is a planet that triggers. The moon is a planet that triggers. The sun is a planet that triggers. And of course, I know they're not actual planets, but that's the word we use as astrologers. The 5 planets that actually, wait, that's Jupiter. No, I'm sorry. Pluto is a planet of transformation. It's the god of death, wealth, and power. Saturn is a planet of transformation. It's the god of structure. And Neptune is a planet of transformation. And Uranus is a planet of transformation. So those are the 4 slow-moving planets of transformation. And then they're activated by the faster-moving planets and luminaries, okay? You could also include the nodes and treat them like slow-moving planets of transformation. So we have to look at what's the meaning of these planets and where are they located. And so Saturn is the planet of structure and authority and maturity and responsibility. And the lesson of Saturn is to behave as a mature adult, a mature, responsible adult. And understand that the word responsible means able to respond. When people take responsibility, they are able to respond. And that is the behavior of a mature adult. People who are not mature and not responsible point fingers and blame. That's different than critical thinking, okay? You can still have critical thinking without pointing fingers and blaming. Pointing fingers and blaming is saying, basically, I'm not responsible. I'm not going to take responsibility. But when you say that, you take away your own ability to respond. And why would anyone do that? I personally would rather stand tall. Saturn is structure, and that even includes our bone structure, our skeletal structure. Standing tall in my power, I'm able to respond by taking responsibility. That is the lesson of Saturn. We are all responsible in this moment. Like when I went to the grocery store, I was waiting for the management to take responsibility for what was happening in their store. I was doing my best to behave as a responsible adult and not take everything off the shelves, but leave something for other people. And I've continued to behave that way. But a lot of people were not behaving that way. And so fortunately, the management took responsibility and said, we're limiting the hours. We're taking care of the most vulnerable population, which are people who are 65 and older. They're allowed to come into the store for an hour and shop in the morning. And so we're taking care of the most vulnerable population, making sure they get their needs. And then the rest can come in after 8 a.m. and shop. But in these items that are limited, not because they're not putting more on the shelf, but because they cannot keep up with this insane demand that's all about panic shopping. It's not because the products aren't coming back onto the shelves. It's because people are taking them off in such large quantities because they're panic buying and hoarding and possibly trying to do some other speculative things, which I mentioned in my other video, like buying up products so other people can't get them and then selling them at a higher price. And that's not mature, responsible behavior. So I was glad to see that. And that's happening in my community. And the fact is that we cannot necessarily rely on our leaders. They cannot necessarily keep us safe. But it does no good to point fingers and say they should do this and they should do that. If they can't, then how does it help us to say they should? Shoulding is not a responsible response. It's like I said, it's one thing to be a critical thinker and to say, I suspect the people who are in leadership positions are not capable and not competent, but to point fingers and say they should be, it doesn't help. It's simply a way of of shedding your own responsibility. And mature, responsible adults say, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm standing tall in my power, and I am ready to do what is responsible. Okay? And that's power, because that is your ability to respond. And I want to be very clear about that, because that is the lesson of Saturn. And if we don't learn that lesson, and there are a lot of people out there who are not learning that lesson, they're doing everything in their power to place blame. And that's not helpful. And to say, oh, we will take reparations against China, that is not helpful in this situation, not at all. What we need to do is come together as a global community and deal with this crisis. That's the mature, responsible way to behave. And that is the lesson of Saturn in this situation. So that's Saturn's lesson. And we're going to look a little bit more at, we're going to keep looking at Saturn, okay? So we looked at the chart for September 11th, 2001. We saw Pluto and Saturn in opposition right across the ascendant of the United States natal chart. Now we are experiencing the activation of the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. And in fact, I could go back to that right now and see if I have that. Yes, Saturn-Pluto at 22 degrees, and then the sun is at 22 degrees at that moment in time as well. And that's close enough. I can assure you, Mars is definitely activating that right now, okay? So that's what we have, Mars-Pluto conjunction with Jupiter magnifying it at 23 degrees and of Capricorn, and that's where the Pluto-Saturn conjunction was. Basically, it's close enough. It's within the orb to activate it. And so that's what's happening. So let me go back again to look at the Mars-Pluto chart and see. Okay, so let me bring up that Mars-Pluto chart, and we'll take another look at it on the U.S. natal chart. So, I looked at these charts so many times that I've already memorized certain points in the chart, like the fact that the ascendant is at 12 degrees, and that Pluto is at 27 degrees, and all these different points that are getting triggered at this time. The North Node is conjunct Venus in the 8th house. Now, the 8th house rules birth and death, and also joint finances, and Venus rules finances. But Venus has a shadow side. The word venal and venereal disease have the same root as Venus. That's Venus's shadow side. So, yeah. So the North Node, when it activates a planet, it can be bringing out the shadow side, but there's always a lesson there. And then notice also with this Mars conjunct Pluto chart that the sun is moving into conjunction with Chiron, squaring the nodes. Okay, so I want to do one more peek at the Mars-Pluto conjunction and the 9/11 chart, so we can see the similarities here. I think, well, okay, here we are again. We can see that that's 12 degree was activated, and also it's being activated in the Mars-Pluto chart, and then the 3 degrees of the South Node, same thing, exact same thing on September 11th, 2001, and this weekend, okay? This Mars is activating these degrees. It's about ready to make something happen. and with the Neptune conjunct the moon. So we have to talk about what each of these planets mean and what they're trying to teach us. So I talked about what Saturn is trying to teach us. Now let's talk about Neptune and Mars and Pluto, because as I said, astrologers were talking about this for a long, long, long time, but it's impossible to know exactly how it will manifest. We know that the energy is going to do something very important that is bringing about transformation of power and authority, and it's going to affect every aspect of our material and financial lives and our bodies, because Uranus is in Taurus. And so we can say that, and yet that doesn't mean that we know that there's going to be a pandemic, especially because Uranus is so unpredictable. It brings things out of left field that you never expected. So we knew something was coming. We just didn't know exactly how it was going to manifest. And now we're seeing it. So now it's easy for us to say, okay, Pluto, the god of death, is conjunct Mars, the god of war and fire. And fire is also, Mars and fire are also representing inflammation, infection, and fever, okay? Conjunct Pluto, the god of death. But remember, Pluto is also the god of transformation, and it's trying to bring us to a point of transformation. And then Neptune is disease, and Neptune is confinement, and it's conjunct the moon, which it represents the people. So their people are being confined because of the disease that's spreading through the population. And the moon is also, and both the moon and the Neptune are water, and they represent the fluids, the body fluids, and it's opposite the sun. So these positions are also being activated, this 18 and 20 degree points in both of these charts. And so, Neptune is super activated because it's in its own sign of Pisces. And what else do we see going on here that was true in both of these charts? Again, the North Node at 3 degrees, Cancer, North Node at 3 degrees, Cancer. So these same points in the charts are being activated. Okay, so now we've talked about, as I said, you need to be extremely careful this weekend because right now it's March 20th and Mars just conjoined Jupiter. And so this energy is getting intensified. It's moving toward its conjunction to Pluto. So the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, that's the weekend. That's this weekend. That's why you need to stay home and keep yourself safe. And then at midnight from Sunday night to Monday morning is the moment that Mars conjunct Pluto becomes exact. So when we wake up on Monday morning, we're going to find out a lot of things because the news, the way they run the news, it's not that they don't do news on the weekends. It's just that it's different because Monday through Friday, like that's it, 24-hour news is just coming at us constantly. Whereas it definitely dips down on the weekend. So there are going to be a lot of things we're going to find out on Monday that we didn't find out on the weekend, but we'll still find out a lot on the weekend. I'm just saying we'll find out more. And also, I've said that I think part of what we're going to find out is that the numbers are really bad. And when I say the numbers are really bad, I'm talking about contagion and death, those numbers. And I'm also talking about the numbers around the stock market and the economy. And when the numbers look bad, people panic even more, and the stock market panics even more. And that just makes it even worse. So Monday and Tuesday are going to be the repercussions of what happened on the weekend. And new things will also happen on Monday and Tuesday. And so normally I would have thought that this March new moon was going to be really good, but in the context of the Mars-Pluto conjunction, Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to bring out a lot of the difficult aspects of the March new moon that were not obvious on the surface. So I am going to now bring up that chart and show you what that looks like. And this March new moon chart is on the 24th. So we're looking at today when I'm making this video, which is Friday, March 20th, and then 21 and 22 of the weekend as Mars and Pluto are moving into conjunction. And then Monday and Tuesday, Monday is the 23rd when Pluto and Mars are still conjunct, and then the 24th. So those are the days right now that you really need to be careful about. 20, 21, 22, that's the weekend. 23 and 24, that's Monday and Tuesday. And so with Tuesday, we get this magnified by this new moon, and this is what it looks like. So the inner chart is the Mars conjunct Pluto chart, which, as I said, happens around midnight from Sunday night to Monday morning. That's why Sunday is so intense. The whole weekend is really intense, and Monday is going to be really intense, and then also Tuesday when we have this new moon on March 24th. So the inner chart is the Mars conjunct Pluto exact on the morning of March 23rd at 1:21 a.m. in Washington, D.C. That's the inner chart. And then the outer chart is the March Aries new moon on March 24th on the outside, okay? So look at what we have going on here. Again, the south node at 3 degrees Capricorn, north node at 3 degrees of Cancer. You can see here the inner chart, the Pluto-Mars conjunction at 24 degrees of Capricorn. They're still, all three of these planets are still really tightly woven together. And see what else we want to look at. Of course, Neptune's still here at 19 degrees. But this is what is slightly different, because all these, you know, they only move about 1 degree at the most, these other planets. The one we want to look at is the fact that the moon has now moved into conjunction with the sun at 4 degrees. And it's squaring the nodes. And not only that, but that was the degree point of the new moon eclipse in December 2019. So this is activating it in conjunction with Chiron. So the new moon in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer, is squaring the nodes and the same nodes, the same nodal point as 9/11/2001, and the same degree point of the new moon eclipse of December 2019. And apparently the infection really started, the contagion really started in December. So this was rolling. And we just didn't know about it until Mars activated the eclipse point of the January 10th, 2020 eclipse. So, so now this new moon in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer, is squaring the nodes, and that nodal point that was true, the same nodal point that was true on 9/11/2001, and the same degree point of the December 2019 eclipse. And so, I mean, that's intense. That's a T-square, and those points are important. This is not random, okay? And the fact that this is the sign ruled by Mars, you know? So when a new moon is in Mars, I mean, in Aries, that means it's giving even more energy to Mars. Okay, so, I mean, I sometimes feel like I'm repeating myself, but, you know, when people ask questions, I realize that a lot of times I might say it one time and it doesn't necessarily land because they don't have a context, you know? So I have to say it multiple times. Pluto is the god of death. Mars is the god of war and fire and inflammation and infection and fever And that planet Mars is even more intense right now with the new moon in Aries because it rules Aries. It's even more intense, and it's conjunct Chiron. So these planets are doing what they need to do to wake us up, to the transformation, to wake us up to taking responsibility, behaving as mature adults who take responsibility, and stop pointing fingers and stop blaming other people, especially people outside our borders. They didn't do this to us. They aren't doing anything to us. We're one of the most powerful nations in the world, and people in this country need to grow up and stop pointing fingers at scapegoats outside our borders who are not doing anything to us. And I know you guys know that. It just makes me angry sometimes when I see that happening, especially when I see people in the media or in positions of leadership saying those kinds of things. So this I hope really, really, really hits home. That these 5 days, the 20th, 21st, 22nd of the weekend, 23rd and 24th of Monday and Tuesday are going to be very intense. And it's not just going to stop on midnight of March 24th, because new moons, they ripple outward. It can take up to 4 to 5 days, sometimes the entire 2 weeks until it reaches its full moon. So I do think that when we get to the end of the week, which would be March 27th and 28th, that actually the alignments are looking much better on the 27th and 28th. And we may be sort of winding down from this insane 4 days. And then also they've announced that they are planning to roll out $1,000 checks for everyone on April 6th, which lines up with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. Okay. So people, I'm sure, will be happy about that. Who doesn't like to get $1,000 check in the mail? So, so then we'll be in the benefic element of Jupiter conjunct Pluto, which is actually exact on April 4th, but that lines up perfectly with the April 6th date, if that is when they actually do it. I'm not going to, believe it until I see it. But anyway, that's in the works right now. So, yeah, it's not going to last forever. I do want to go ahead and show you the chart, which is the planet return for Pluto, because people keep asking me, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? And all I can say is I can only do so much, people. I really, astrology, there's a reason why astrologers get paid what they get paid, because to do one video or to do one reading for someone is a full day's work. Okay. You have to do a lot of research. And if you don't, you get yourself into trouble, which you have seen me do. I tried to make a response to the virus and make a video about that. And I fell flat on my face because I rushed it. And, so when people want to know, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? You have to understand, astrologers are human beings. We're not magical beings. We're just human beings. And we're doing a lot of research to try to find the answers to your questions. And it takes a lot of time. So if you want to learn how to do this, sign up for my workshop. We'll have 6 weeks to look at charts and to try to find the answers. And you can be a part of looking for those answers. But this is a clue about the timing. The Pluto return happens on February 20th, 2022. So that's 2 years from now. And you may think, oh my God, 2 years? But that's what it takes, Transformation takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And especially when people refuse to act like mature, responsible adults. When people are constantly in blaming, shaming, guilt tripping, and pointing fingers and scapegoating, they won't grow up, they won't take responsibility, and that's why we keep coming around on this spiral of consciousness expansion. It says, okay, you didn't learn your lesson, here we go, let's try this again, okay? So I hope we learn our lesson this time and do this phenomenal transformation. I want to show you one more quick thing that I think is really interesting in relationship to the Pluto aspect of this, because Pluto is playing a huge, huge, huge role in this, along with Mars and Saturn and Neptune. So let me show you these fascinating images I found. Pluto is also often symbolized as the phoenix rising out of the ashes. So there's this image of a bird, and you might think of the bird as freedom, like the eagle represents freedom and power. And I'm talking about a real power, not a phony power. And that's what the phoenix is. It's a bird of freedom. It's a bird of power. And it's also a bird of fire and transformation. Just look at this. It's amazing, this imagery of fire, because Mars is activating this with its fire, with its fire in the body, the inflammation, the infection, the fever. Okay, that's the transformation, that's the rebirth of Pluto conjunct Mars. You can actually get excited about this. This can be really, really exciting. And I know if you personally are suffering right now, you know, either because something has happened to someone you love, or you personally are suffering either physically or financially, I understand that's really difficult. I don't wish that on anyone, but we have to understand that transformation is usually painful. But notice how, look at that. I mean, it's like, you can actually see a cross there. And I want to mention that the cross is actually a symbol of Saturn. You can actually see it in the symbol of Saturn. You can see the cross. The cross was a symbol used for a long, long, long time before Jesus walked the earth. And that's the symbol of Saturn, okay? And Saturn is the father, and its structure, and it's our bone structure, it's our skeletal structure, and you can see the cross here. And you can also see the heart and the lungs and the light shining through. It's fire, but it's also light. And it's bursting forth in the heart chakra, where your heart and your lungs are. That fire to transform. It's just amazing. And let me show you some of the other imagery that I found along these same lines. So here's another image of Phoenix out of the fire. I love this imagery because something about it also reminds me of the virus with the, like, look at that spirally thing. You know, and I'm not trying to glorify nature or, you know, romanticize it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that there are connections everywhere you look. And that's how you understand how to transform. That's how you get the meaning of it, you know, because that's the way the universe is communicating with us, through the symbols. And that's how divinity speaks to us. When someone is divining, they are seeing symbols everywhere. It's very archetypal. And so the symbolism of the shapes and the forms and the colors are very meaningful. And the elements, it's very meaningful. And, you know, so if you want to learn, if you want to find the answers, you know, obviously there are many amazing readers and intuitives and psychics online, some of them better than others. They're giving you clues, but you can find the clues yourself too. Look at this image. again, of the phoenix rising out of the fire. That is absolutely amazing. It's stunning. I mean, I'm just blown away by this. I don't know if it has the impact on you that it has on me, but I am just absolutely blown away. Another thing you can do is you can actually meditate on these symbols. You know, you can find these kind of images. Just Google. I Googled like Pluto Phoenix rising, and this is the kind of imagery that I found. And you can sit and meditate for as long as you want on this kind of imagery and journal on it, and you'll get tremendous messages coming through. And so you can find the answers too. You don't necessarily have to rely on me or all the other astrologers and readers and intuitives and psychics. You have that ability within you. And again, if you want to learn how to do this yourself, and you know, even if you're not looking to become a professional astrologer, you can still begin to understand the symbology and start to learn how to do research and how to find the answers yourself. That way you don't always have to wait and rely on other people to tell you what the meaning is. So I hope that you will join me in that workshop again. It's down below. Just look for that link. Or if you just want a personal reading, the link for that will also be below. And as always, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, click like on this video, also ring the bell for notifications, share this video with friends and family and on social media, and leave your comments. And I'm really enjoying your comments, by the way. They're amazing. All right, so that's it for today, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.